Next, the roller coaster we know as the business cycle, the sharp ups and downs of the economy. With this country's economy in its 7th straight year of growth, some economists have been theorizing that the business cycle may be dead. Not quite, reports our special business correspondent Paul Solman of public station WGBH in Boston.
It feels like riding a roller coaster. When you're going up, it feels like you're going to keep going up and shoot right off the top. But then it turns around and your stomach drops out and you're headed down, and then you think you're going to crash into the ground.
To some scholars, a roller coaster represents one of the most familiar yet serious problems of the American economy, the so-called business cycle. It shows up in real estate construction, microchip manufacturing, the marketing of automobiles. And what do they all have in common? Well, what they all have in common is that they're all in industries that go through cycles of boom, bust, the roller coaster ride characteristic of so many businesses. We're at MIT's Sloan Business School, where Professor John Sterman is about to subject his students and me to this phenomenon in something he calls the beer game.
So what we've done is created the simulated beer company, which you will manage over the next hour and a half.
To experience firsthand the cycles in the beer game, I've joined one team competing against teams at other tables. We'll win the game if we can balance the supply and demand for our product. We can win a few bucks as well.
And I've gotten this cleared with the State Gambling Commission. I need everyone to chip up $1. Each person needs to wager.
We're playing for real money, but in the game, the pennies on the table stand for beer. Each penny, a case of the stuff.
You'll be filling orders by moving the pennies downstream. Each penny represents...
For those compulsives who wish to follow closely, here's the game board without the players. The retailer orders beer from the wholesaler on those little pieces of white paper. The wholesaler orders beer from the distributor, who orders beer from the factory. Now, the beer's brewed at the factory, but it takes time to age, and there are shipping delays, those smaller squares. As the cases of beer, the pennies, are sent back down the line to fill the original orders. At this point, I was about as baffled as you may be.
Everybody should now record your inventory for week 1.
But I was beginning to get the drift. In the game, as in real life, the cost of carrying too much inventory in our warehouse could put us out of business. But if we run out of beer for too long, our customers could go elsewhere, and we're out of business as well.
And I think we should order 2 this time.
Only 2?
Only 2.
And what's the reasoning here?
Well, because the trend in the order seems to be going up. We have 6 now, and we had 4 last time. We want to make sure we don't stop.
Everybody else, fill your incoming orders.
The strategy's working because we're at a steady state here, right?
Right. We're trying to keep a steady state in inventory as low as possible.
Okay, great.
In other words, our team sensed the danger, that we might get taken for a ride. A roller coaster ride through which so many real-life industries cycle. For example, real estate. Developer Francine Townsend remembers the thrill of riding high.
We're hot. The outside world knows we're hot. Hull finally has found its place in the world, and it's great news. Other people are following us in. Other developers are coming in one at a time. They all understand the potential that's here.
Townsend is talking about Hull, Massachusetts, a seaside community only 40 minutes from Boston. In the early 80s, Hull's main attraction was an amusement park. But developers saw waterfront and the potential to build rooms with a view, spacious condominiums. They planned this building on the site of Hull's old roller coaster. Before ground was even broken, would-be buyers wanted in.
So the phone would ring, and eventually we sat down. Within days, we sat in our offices and said, okay, how are we going to handle this? Well, we'll tell everybody if they're interested to send in a $5,000 check with their name. We'll give a number and put them on the list. The next thing we know, within literally days and weeks, we had over 150 $5,000 checks sitting on the desk for units here at this particular project.
Demand for new housing seemed unlimited. Other developers jumped in, and a boom was born.
We fill an order for 12, right, which is everything we have.
Back at the beer game, the same thing is beginning to happen. The actual customer orders are on those yellow cards. From what we're seeing, it looks like those customers are suddenly on a bender. Orders to us just quadrupled.
Next step.
And we don't have anything left in inventory.
Now it's week 11.
Now it's week 11, we don't have anything coming in, and we're going to get a demand from her, and we're going to stock out.
Oh my God. It was 18. We have nothing coming.
We have 0 coming in.
Fill the order. Here comes the order. 12.
12.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So now, to meet the surge in demand, we start ordering like crazy from the factory. But there's a lag of several weeks as they gear up to brew in greater volume. Meanwhile, we can't fill our orders. Our backlog is mounting.
Add 2 to the backlog, so we have a backlog of 40.
What are we going to order here?
Order 20.
20. All right. So we ordered 20.
We're desperate, ordering 20 cases week after week. There seems to be a boom in demand, and we can't keep up with it. And immersed as we are, we've forgotten all about the possibility of a bust. On our roller coaster ride in the beer game, we had reached a peak in demand, and we're now heading down. And that's exactly what happened to our real estate developer in Hull, Massachusetts, Paul Quinn.
It was a slow sinking feeling, and it was a horrible feeling.
I mean, we went from one extreme, a very high speed, a very high velocity, to almost a dead stop.
There were millions invested.
Well, I think this is as bad as I've ever seen it, and I think it's as bad as it's going to get.
That raises a question. If the cycle really has hit bottom, and condos like this one will eventually find buyers, wouldn't now be the time to start building for the next boom?
Now's the time to do it. Your question's absolutely right. Unfortunately, most of the people who are involved in the real estate industry, including the developers, the financial institutions, and everyone else right now, is too busy trying to address the problems they have left over from the last one.
Meanwhile, back at the beer game,
Right now, we've got at least 50 units coming in. The last couple of demands have been 6 or 8. We're going to have excess inventory. We shouldn't order any right now.
now we've got too much inventory.
Well, all the orders...
The customers are no longer on a bender. They're suddenly on the wagon. And Carl and I are on the roller coaster as the game mercifully comes to an end.
And record your inventory. Record your inventory for week 33. Some of you may need a calculator at this point.
I'm relieved to report that our company hasn't completely fizzled out, though at game's end, our keg runneth over.
Basically, we ordered too much when we were backlogged, and now we have too much sitting in inventory.
Yeah, I'll say. We have 70. All right, so now where are we?
But had this been the real world, we might have unloaded the excess beer by cutting price and running one of those subtle ads car dealers love.
Get up to $2,000 cash back plus an additional $600 for qualified first-time buyers. That's the biggest cash back on Cutlass Sierra ever.
Here at Quirk Oldsmobile outside of Boston, it's costing them $250,000 a month just to carry last year's inventory. The annual desperation is setting in, and everyone here is starting to sound like a commercial.
We have incentives to the customer, and we would like to provide an opportunity and do whatever it takes to sell a customer an Oldsmobile today.
Price cutting in the auto industry has actually worsened the cycles, according to John Sturman.
The dealers and the manufacturers create the fluctuation by marketing programs, incentives, price discounts, and other policies which cause people to purchase now instead of next year. And then when next year comes along, nobody wants to purchase a car, inventory piles up, you're forced to discount again. How do you sort
In the
out what's
debriefing
noise and
session
what's
Sturman ran
trend?
2 days after the beer game,
And then
he
you can
traced
also
the
see
dizzying
here
ups and downs of the
cycle.
auto cycle.
So as a decision maker trying to respond to this, you've got a difficult problem. During the recession
Car dealers
periods,
often try to
what do you
pin the
do?
problem on the
Same thing we're
outside
doing right now.
world. Japanese
Incentives,
dumping
cashback,
or a surge in interest
financing,
rates.
media blitz.
In the beer game, we too blamed the other guy. In this case, the fickle consumer. Here are 4 pictures of consumer demand for beer as members of my team perceived it.
Orders at the customer end started out at 4, rose up with some pattern that fluctuated, but rose up to about 20, and then collapsed. Very
Every team
substantial
drew
movement.
the same graph. We
Now,
all
while we're on the
blamed
topic,
unpredictable demand.
What
And the
was
professor who'd
the
rigged
pattern
it.
of customer demand? Everyone here is telling me that it was my fault, not your fault, that we experienced these fluctuations. The customers fluctuated. We just reacted to that. What's actually going on?
During the game, only students in the role of retailer saw initial demand, as written by John Sturman on those yellow cards. At last, Sturman's secret would be revealed.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say, really, now that it was after it started at 4 for the few rounds that we did, it hopped up to 8 and then stayed there for the whole time.
Right. It was 4 for the first 4 weeks. In week 5, customer orders jumped up to 8, and it was 8, 8, 8, 8.
Yes, there was a rise in demand, but, and here's the moral of the story, we had created the cycle by overreacting every step of the way. Even the level-headed Keystone team overreacted, but less dramatically than the rest of us, and that's why Keystone won the game and the bankroll the class had wagered.
Who's the Keystone treasurer? Okay, there you go.
$68 is a meager return on the $20,000 a year investment of attending MIT, but the lesson here could be priceless, that in some industries, you can actually learn to soften the cycle. The beer business itself, for example, has calmed the beer cycle because after playing the game for real, year after year, its managers now monitor demand with computers and respond immediately. But in industries with long lag times, like real estate and autos, the cycles persist. Of many small cycles, the grand business cycle of the economy is made. Expansion, recession, boom, bust. Some economists say that the grand business cycle is now dead, that we finally learned to smooth the bumps and achieve a soft landing. John Sterman has his doubts.
It's not dead, and in the past, every time it's been reported as dead, it's resurfaced with a vengeance. For 200 years, the entire industrial era, business cycles have continued. They're not perfectly regular. We're not in a pendulum clock, but there's no reason to think that the business cycle has gone away.